One of the most iconic, memorable video game dungeons of my childhood was the Marsh Cave from the original Final Fantasy. It had all of the fundamentals of a proper dungeon delve. Not just the basics like dead ends, treasure chests, and monsters, but the good stuff like resource attrition, uncertainty, thinking on your feet, stress, subterranean claustrophobia, greed, traps, luck, and bad judgment. The Cave to Roan from Dragon Quest II, the Great Pyramid from Dragon Quest III, and Dragon's Eye from Icewind Dale are other old and weirdly dragon-named examples of dungeons scarred into my memory. But if I were to pick a single most iconic dungeon from all of gaming, it would be the continuous descent from Cursed Town to Cathedral to Catacombs to Caves to Hell itself in the original Diablo. Diablo's place in history is very strange, and it is frustratingly unique despite being the progenitor of both the lucrative and long-running Diablo series and the entire modern ARPG genre. Well, the truth is, it's not the direct progenitor of the modern ARPG. Diablo 2 is, and Diablo 1 is merely a missing link, an Archaeopteryx with both scales and feathers. Diablo was originally developed as a turn-based dungeon crawler similar to Rogue or the Mystery Dungeon games, and pivoted to being real-time, mid-development. That left certain aesthetic and systemic choices baked in, and the game could only get so action-packed because it had originally been built around discrete turns instead of a real-time clock. Small, tense rooms with enemies that moved using tile-based clockwork logic, an emphasis on positioning and spacing, strategies that changed drastically on something as small as whether a doorway was 1 or 2 tiles wide. Diablo 2 was built from the ground up with no such constraints, and it got faster, flashier, more aggressive. It was no longer a dungeon to delve, it was a Skinner box, more about random drops than random dangers. It was still Diablo, but only in the sense that Resident Evil 4 was still Resident Evil, and Assassin's Creed Origins was still Assassin's Creed. Diablo had become something else, and that something had staying power. People love Diablo 2, and I'm not here to tell them that they're wrong. But I don't love Diablo 2. It's fine. And Diablo 4 is fine too. But the original Diablo is a game I've come back to again and again out of both love and necessity, because there's nothing else like it. Outside of Diablo, you have to pick a lane. Turn-based mystery dungeon, or hyperkinetic explosive antics. But I don't want to pick a lane. I want an ARPG willing to slow back down, with more focus on atmosphere and positioning, where individual enemies are more threatening, rather than being strictly fodder. You know, more like a Souls-like. When I added ARPG to my bingo board, I did so full well knowing exactly which game would fall in that space. No Rest for the Wicked is actually unique among all the games I'm doing genre exploration videos for this year, because I had settled on playing that long before I had settled on making the bingo board in the first place. It was a game I'd had my eye on, and for me, kind of the last great hope of ARPGs. Obviously, I love Diablo 1, and I love the Souls games too, and I could see in something like Quelaag's Domain in the first Dark Souls game, the descent to that is not entirely unlike the descent down to hell in the original Diablo. I could see that shared DNA, even though I couldn't really see it in Diablo 2. Developer Moon Studios brought some touches from their Ori games to No Rest for the Wicked, including handcrafted level design with a lot of unlockable shortcuts and a lot of verticality. It is also, like the Ori games, a looker. But the more prominent influences are Souls and Monster Hunter. From Souls, we have the stamina bar, poise breaks, evasive roll, block, parry, high commitment attacks, 4 main damage stats that also serve as requirements for equipping different weapons, bonfires, and more. For Monster Hunter, we have, well, I will admit, I have no idea what I'm talking about here, to be fair, and I have never played a Monster Hunter game. I am just reading between the lines of the game's director saying he took inspiration from and Capcom. What I assume is from Monster Hunter is the crafting and gathering. You don't just get Estus Flask charges like in Dark Souls, nor do you get easily farmed grasses or blood vials like in Demon Souls or Bloodborne. No, you forage mushrooms and learn recipes and have to craft your own healing items. So it goes with everything. Not only does it take copper ore to upgrade your axe, it takes copper ore and pine wood to even build the forge in the first place. Do you want to sleep in an inn? Copper and pine. Do you want to install a shortcut in town? Copper and pine. Like I said, I never played Monster Hunter, and the thing that has always kept me from it is the sinking feeling that I'd have to do all of this hunter simulation stuff between the fights. That said, I understand that Monster Hunter is a series about being a monster hunter, not just the hunt itself. And I'm not mad at it for doing its own thing. But it feels like a really poor fit for the game that I think No Rest for the Wicked ought to be. No Rest for the Wicked is a game that does try to slow down relative to Diablo 2 style games. Unlike the original Diablo, which slows down by filling the air with dread, keeping the player focused on the question of what danger lies beyond the next door, No Rest for the Wicked slows down by grafting town builder and inventory manager chores to the game. You will walk by a tree, and you won't want to pull out your axe. You will want to keep moving, to drop down a well and look for monsters and treasure. But you know that if you don't chop down that tree, it'll just be 2 more trees you need to chop down later. And if you defer your lumberjack chores, that just means delaying town building projects and the game's slow trickle of modest quality of life systems. So you pull out the axe and the pickaxe and the shovel and the fishing rod. Over and over and over. Every game in this genre, including the original Diablo, involves periodically coming up for air, returning to town to sell off some items, re-upping on potions, getting ready for the next foray. But in Diablo, the whole time you're in the dungeon, you're thinking about the dungeon. And when you're in Tristram, you're thinking still about the dungeon. In No Rest for the Wicked, the town, Sacrament, is 100% of the focus at all times. Everything is built around furthering the town's progression for dozens of hours. I was looping back around to old zones I had zero interest in revisiting, simply because I needed copper and pine, not to defeat the evils on the island, for town progression. Killing monsters helps you level up, sure, but upgrading your gear to effectively do that monster killing, you are stuck playing Gopher to the town architect. If you want to engage with the game's rune socketing system, pay the architect. You're never thinking, can I kill this enemy? Will it drop cool loot? You're thinking, well, how does this activity fit into Sacrament's 5-year development plan? It's clear, I think, that I don't enjoy these aspects of the game. I think it would flat out be a drastically improved game if they removed all of the town progression elements, all of the foraging, and replaced them with literally nothing. Let the island landscape breathe as an actual harrowing threat, rather than as a Halloween-themed farming route. The last great hope of ARPGs did not rescue me. Maybe a game like this, No Rest for the Wicked, but without the foraging and wage slavery, will exist someday. But even if so, I might be done with the genre. I've realized that to the extent that I have an appetite for Souls-style gameplay grafted to ARPG loot-based character building, I'm not going to want No Rest for the Wicked. I've got Team Ninja, which Moon Studio head Thomas Mahler did not name drop when he name dropped Capcom and From. Team Ninja has released 6 of these in the past decade: Neo, Neo 2, Stranger of Paradise, Wo Long Fallen Dynasty, Rise of the Ronin, and Neo 3. They're not all identical or equally good, but everyone I've tried has been great. If I want to build craft in an action game, and I think the inventory chores are worth it, I just can't see picking No Rest for the Wicked over a Team Ninja game. For the record, and to be fair, it's not that I think No Rest for the Wicked is a bad game. It's just outcompeted on the criteria that matter to me. I still need to pick up Neo 2 and 3, so why spend more time with this? And if on the other hand I want a classic Diablo 1 experience,
fortunately we have a product for people who aren't able to
enjoy streamlined Skinner boxes.
It's called
Diablo 1.
Right.
Up next, the very broad and ambiguous genre of puzzle games. Like with the racing game episode, this involved some very educational false starts that had come widely recommended, and I seemed at first destined to produce a 3rd video in a row where I was in some fundamental ways dissatisfied with my experience. But after 3 strikes, I finally got a home run with the minimalist, methodical, minesweepery Hex Cells. And I loved it so much that I cleared it in an afternoon and immediately bought the sequel. Look forward to me gushing about Hex Cells and dragging everyone's favorite puzzle games along the way in 2 weeks. See you then.